Mr. Lokeshwar Rao, Mr. Pradeep Bhargav, Mr. Shirgurkar, Mr. Sirur, Mr. Anbu, friends. Thank you for extending me the honor to come and share my views and insights on this very timely event on covering productivity. When Mr. Dhan called me a few weeks back, inviting me to share my thoughts with members of IMTMA, I wondered, why me? What can I contribute to people who have knowledge of precision engineering and technology in their DNA? There is so much resting in the minds of members of IMTMA. What are the insights that I could share which might be of interest and value? On reflection, it occurred to me that as the CEO of Shriram Pistons and Rings, which is a company kissing about 1,000 crore turnover, and planning to invest more and grow more in the next 5 years than we have invested and grown in the last 25 years, it may be useful to share our experience and views on some obvious management myths that we are dealing with and some concerns about the two major challenges, in my view, which are staring at us at our face. The first, how to scale up rapidly, and number two, competitiveness. Let me begin on a good note. This is the best time to be in India, and this is the best time to be an Indian. Despite the creaking infrastructure and out of step with reality bureaucracy, neighbors who envy our progress and are bent on creating hurdles, the daily antics, trials and tribulations of our politicians who have virtually no accountability, despite this, India is on a roll. At no time in the history of free India has there been as much optimism about the future as there is today. Only till some years ago, we had to wait for months to get a telephone connection. Today, India is the fastest growing market for mobile telephones in the world, and India has the lowest price per minute for a phone call compared to any country in the world, thanks to the advent of free competition. Similarly, 2 decades ago, it was the dream of India to manufacture a small car. Today, India dreams of becoming the manufacturing hub for small cars for the whole world. 2 decades ago, we were importing software know-how. Today, Bangalore is the IT hub for the world, just as Paris is to fashion. However, it's important to reflect that the process of economic development has just started. Economic prosperity has not touched the lives of millions of our fellow Indians. We are on the side of the hill, nowhere near the top. The challenges that we have met so far, they pale in comparison to the challenges that lie ahead, because the global economic situation remains uncertain. And what today seems like a perfect takeoff weather could suddenly turn turbulent at short notice. Taking note of these uncertain times, and what industry must do to prepare and benefit from the changes taking place around us in the economic landscape, our former President Abdul Kalam recently in an ACMA conference said, "A nation's economic development is powered by competitiveness, and competitiveness is powered by knowledge power. Knowledge power is powered by technology and innovation, and technology and innovation are powered by appropriate resource investment and its productive use." He went on to explain this till he came and said, "Quality and value of products is powered by employee productivity and innovation. And employee productivity in turn is powered by employee loyalty. Employee loyalty in turn is powered by employee satisfaction, which is powered by his working environment. And working environment is powered by management innovation, and management innovation is powered by creative leadership. Therefore, for success in any endeavor, it is essential to have creative leadership. Creative leadership means exercising the vision to change the traditional role, and I draw your special attention, to change the traditional role from commander to coach, manager to mentor, from director to delegator, and from one who demands respect to one who facilitates self-respect in his team members. For enhancing national value, India needs a large number of creative leaders from all professional and industry cadres." That was Dr. Abdul Kalam for you. He emphasized that the way to deal with the future is to inform leadership that their business is to create leaders and not managers. And it is in the context of this that during this productivity summit, I want to now share some experiences and thoughts in the context of the three developments. Number one, to find our rightful place in this world, we need to grow fast. We have to increase capacity rapidly. In the auto sector alone, investment and production must double in the next 5 years. Second, the big challenge is to grow rapidly, but keep cost under control, or our growth story will lose steam. And three, customers expect improved quality at lower cost. Customers expect improved quality at lower cost, and rightly so. This is not going to change. It's for us to find the smart way to deal with this reality. So, what is the big challenge to grow rapidly? How many times have you heard that the biggest challenge for scaling up is the availability of capital? I think this is a hangover from the past and the first myth which I want to demystify. No company is small because it wants to remain small. A company is small because it has not learned how to become big as yet. The biggest challenge for scaling up fast today is neither customer demand, whether domestic or export, nor is it money. It is usually a question of what is your management bandwidth. Do you have the right quality and the right number of people available to grow rapidly? What is your bench strength of people with the right skill sets? This determines your ability to scale up rapidly. More people strength, faster the growth that is possible. And if I told you at this time that people are the biggest asset in an organization, you will say I'm only stating the obvious. But have you ever wondered, if people are the biggest asset, why is people cost shown as an expense, while machine tools, which depreciate with time, are shown as assets? This is a huge hangover from the industrial age, which we have not got over. We are still dabbling with knowledge power as the way forward without giving up what were the truisms during the industrial age. In fact, I want to ask all of you, have you seen a balance sheet where people are classified as assets? But you will find it in the vision statement of every second company. Have you ever wondered how much real time is spent in the development of people, in the leadership development within enterprises? And I am not referring to the spray and pray kind of training, or what we loosely call on-the-job training, because we don't have a structured program, so we call it on-the-job training. I'm not referring to this. And I want to draw your attention. The old school of thinking was that management responsibility is to get work done from people. The new reality is that the role of management is to develop people through meaningful work. Leadership is not about genetic makeup. It is not about getting jobs done. It is about a new mental makeup. People are most productive when they are learning and they are growing, and when there is excitement and they are passionate about what they are doing. Every individual, mark you, every individual working in a company has his own personal life agenda. He has his own desires, his own plans. How we leverage this to align it with the company agenda and company goals is the new way forward. You can hire a person to deliver 8 hours of work. However, it is not obligatory that he will share his best ideas of improvement and deliver his best unless it is aligned with his own life agenda. We spend so much time optimizing the cycle time of machines, implementing new processes to improve productivity. We do not hesitate to invest large sums of money in the modernization of plant and equipment. If only a fraction of these resources were spent to understanding the needs of our team members and helping them to improve their skill sets, giving them room to experiment, to stretch, and do what they are passionate about. Modernizing mindsets is the new challenge, not getting work done through people. That is passé. Let me pause over here to recapitulate. There is a huge opportunity in this country to grow and scale up rapidly. And the challenge is not capital, it is creative leadership, it is people strength. And since business excellence or growth is about people, should we not start a system to measure the performance of our leadership team by how much time and resources they allocate for the development of people? We have very sophisticated systems for performance measurement. Maybe, or in performance measurement, you usually measure production, sales, profits. Very sophisticated systems. We also know what impacted profits, up or down. Maybe it is time to develop similar sophistication and capability to measure the contribution to leadership building, skill development, and motivation. What you cannot measure does not get done. How much time is management devoting to the serious development of people, to creating excitement with people? Is it possible to measure it as the new way to embrace productivity? Please also reflect. If business excellence and rapid growth is about people, should we not reinvent our companies to be like universities, where people are paid to learn and upgrade their skills continuously? Innovation, quality, customer centricity, and productivity will naturally follow and flourish when there are good people working in smart teams in an enabling environment, essentially a learning environment. Let me now share my thoughts on the second management myth, which we are continuing to deal with daily. How many times have you heard? Customers are unreasonable. They want better quality, but they are not willing to pay the price. How many times do you hear this in your company, as if our customers are not the purpose of our business, but they are antagonists? Let me share a few insights. While we may be selling machine tools, software, fixtures, components, but we are also buyers, both in our professional life and in our personal life. What do we expect from our suppliers? Of course, we expect better quality, we expect lower price, and we expect excellent service. And that is why we encourage competition, so that we can buy at the lowest price the best goods. Yet we feel upset when our customers expect exactly the same from us. Better quality, new technology, better service, lower prices. And how many times have you heard that the customer simply does not understand the cost structure of my product? Why does the customer not understand that cost of raw materials is increasing? Manpower cost is increasing, power cost is increasing, imported components which I am buying are costing more. How can I remain profitable unless he reimburses me the entire increase in cost? I am sure you've heard this and you hear this every day. This begs a question: how much time do we actually spend in understanding the business of our customers? And let me explain this. We manufacture pistons, rings, and engine valves in our company and supply these to practically every vehicle maker in the country and to many OEMs abroad. There is very severe competition now in the small car market. Each year, manufacturers are coming up with more features in a car at prices which were unthinkable till just a few years ago. A car which is now fitted with power windows, safety airbags, ABS, and many more features costs just the same today as a car without these features just a year ago. Therefore, if our customer, say Maruti, is facing severe competition of this nature and must reduce costs to stay in business, is it not natural that the customer will expect us to find ways, innovative ways, to deliver components at lower prices? If the customer concerns are indeed genuine, is it not fair for us to look inward for opportunities to reduce waste, improve productivity, adopt new technologies, new processes, but find a way to deliver components at a cheaper price. Cheaper price is not lower profit. It means you reduce waste, reduce cost, and transfer to customer. Is complaining about customer expectations fair? The dynamics that drive and shape the business of our customer has a very strong influence on what the customer expects from us. If all the increase in costs is simply transferred from component makers to machine tool builders to users of machine tools to the end customers, we could end up with prices that will make the end product, that is a car, unaffordable and reduce demand. Obviously, the answer lies in understanding the dynamics of your customer needs and reducing waste to improve through improvement of productivity. Let me pause here just to recapitulate. It is not your customer, but your competitor who determines the maximum price you can get. Therefore, the real challenge is to be more productive and cost competitive than any of your competitors. And being customer-centric means understanding your customer's business. Only when your customers win do you win. Howsoever painful this may sound, but this is the reality. I stay with the customer because the biggest impact of productivity or the biggest benefit of productivity flows to him. So let me take the third thought forward. Every company claims we are customer-centric. Every organization actually believes it is customer-centric and claims to do its best to serve the interest of customers. But I have some doubts. Let me elaborate. Have you noticed how we spend most of our time including making attractive presentations, brochures, and more to tell the customers how good we are and how our product or service is superior? Now compare this with how much time do we spend listening to the customer and understanding his business. And listening is not about how to outsmart my customer and get a better price or a bigger order, but to truly understand what he wants and why does he want what he wants. For example, do our customers want a new improved machine tool, or are they looking for something else, perhaps a solution? Let me share an example once again from our company. For 15 years, we were knocking on the doors of an OEM in Pune, a very large OEM in Pune, to get business. And each time, we met with a shut door. We have great technology, we have a proven track record, but the customer said, I am satisfied with what I have. I don't need you. When we found that knocking for so many years did not produce results, we changed tactics and we said, let us try and understand what is the customer looking for and why. And we discovered that in their engine, they are currently having 2 or 3 problems. They would like to reduce blow-by, they would like to improve fuel efficiency because the customer expects better fuel efficiency, and so on. We took upon ourselves at our cost to develop a product, test the engine, and give them a validated product to say, here is a solution to your problem. We did not offer them only our product of pistons, rings, piston pins and rings. We offered them a comprehensive solution which included certain other components that go inside an engine. This customer is one of our largest customers today, and this happened only a few years back. Is the customer expecting a product or is he expecting a solution? Is the customer satisfied with just a machine tool that works well, maybe under European conditions? Or would he rather have a machine tool that is designed for Indian operating conditions, where power failures are very frequent, there is higher dust in the workplace usually, and maintenance is less than perfect? Let me tell you another example. When General Motors brought Optra from Germany for sale in India, it did not do well. Similarly, when Ford brought Escort to India, the best-selling car of UK, it did not do well either. Not because these were not excellent products, but were not ideal for the Indian operating conditions and did not meet the requirement of the Indian customer. Subsequently, General Motors have developed a car for the Indian market, Spark, and Ford have recently introduced Figo. And both these cars have met with good success. These cars have high fuel efficiency, have the appropriate ground clearance, taking into account the rough road conditions in India. They have sturdier suspension system to deal with our potholes, and many other similar features have been designed keeping the Indian customer in view. Where did General Motors and Ford go wrong? It is in the understanding of the psyche of the Indian customer, for whom fuel efficiency, affordability, and being able to handle rough roads were more important than many other features, expensive features, which were part of General Motors and Ford offerings in the beginning. Therefore, coming nearer home, a CNC or a PLC system that works well in Europe but is not user-friendly when there is frequent power tripping is not what the customer wants. Are we listening to him? Are we customer-centric? Similarly, let me confirm, customers do not want a low price. Another myth we deal with. Customers want higher value. And what is value? Value is something which a customer recognizes and is willing to pay for. I am deeply disappointed when some of my colleagues come to me and tell me that they are buying the next set of machines from the same supplier and the machines are identical, but the cost is a little bit more because of increase in cost of raw material or whatever. Instead, if the new machines had improved features, which means lower cycle time, lower setup time, higher energy efficiency, and accuracy that is maintained over longer periods of time, we would happily pay a higher price. The key issue is value, not cost. The key issue is number of improvements that have been made since we bought that last equipment. In a meeting with Maruti recently, we were informed that there are more than 500 improvements, big and small, in the best-selling Alto car today compared to just 1 year ago. It's time for us to reflect as a machine tool industry, as people connected with this industry. If Maruti can do it, why can't we? Frankly, I've often wondered why cars are available on an extended, all-inclusive warranty for 4 years or even 5 years now. You buy a car, fully taken care of for 5 years. But no machine tools are available with an all-inclusive extended warranty. Why? Both are capital goods. Why is it that car manufacturers have been able to organize reconditioning and refurbishing of cars in a systematic, organized way, transparent way, but there are only a handful of machine tool makers who offer to take care of the machine over its lifetime, take back the old machine, recondition, refurbish, supply with an extended warranty, and actually maintain a lifetime relationship. Why is it possible that in Japan, you specify the footprint of a machine that I have only so much space and the special features I want in the machine, and you get it. But we have to settle for more or less standardized machines in India. With increasing scale of operations and huge growth that lies ahead, it is evident that companies in India will need to invest in low cost, appropriate automation. I emphasize low cost, appropriate automation that works under Indian operating conditions with frequent power outages, etc. It's an area that is begging for more investment and entrepreneurship. Are we listening? Till how far does our customer centricity go? In conclusion, let me reflect on two other myths quickly. These myths are mystifying both the boardroom as well as the shop floor. One, good people are not available. Have you heard this? Good people are not available. As if God has stopped making good people. Second one, India's trump card in manufacturing competitiveness is low wages. What a sad statement. Let me first start with the assumption that sufficient number of good people are not available. Imagine if all of us were to only employ the very good people, what will happen to the average people who constitute the bulk of our country? I shudder to think in our own company, if the 300 plus engineers that we have all came from the IITs or similar premier institutions, and we had to pay them a premium price, our cost structure would collapse under the weight of the premium salaries and make us uncompetitive. Management is not about hiring smart people or talent poaching from other companies. It's about building smart people inside your enterprises. It's about getting above average performance from average people. Because given the right enablers, average people can deliver above average performance. You can get exceptional performance from average people if proper resources are allocated and an enabling environment is created. I want to remind all of you, only 25% of learning takes place in school and college. Even if you do your masters, only 25% of your life learning takes place in school and college. 75% of the learning is at the workplace. So workplace is where we can make truly the bigger difference. We know that wages and salaries are the direct outcome of supply and demand, perhaps to some extent inflation. So if demand for good people is increasing and supply does not catch up, wages and salaries will grow and erode our competitiveness. Therefore, we have to increase the pool of skilled manpower by converting our factories into learning institutions, virtually like universities, where the purpose of training is to make you a better and a more capable, employable, skilled individual. Equally important, it is to understand that it is not low wages but high productivity in the long run which can keep India competitive. A number of companies have recognized this, that in the long run, India's true advantage lies in competitively priced white-collar personnel. White-collar personnel includes engineers who can contribute through frugal engineering to reducing the cost of design, development, testing, validation. Going forward, it is my view that it is white-collar cost which will contribute more to the overall cost of the product than the cost of shop floor associates or skilled manpower. Therefore, it is time to focus on white-collar productivity alongside blue-collar productivity, because this will give us a sustainable advantage in the long run. Let me summarize and conclude. There is a huge opportunity to grow this is the best time to be in India. However, it is a challenge to grow rapidly. Growth is not a matter of capital as much as it is of management bandwidth and your bench strength of talented people and your ability to retain trained people. Second, you cannot create your bench strength of people by hiring talent and poaching talent. This will just increase your people cost. The way forward is to invest in development of smart people with appropriate skills in greater numbers than you need. Even if some of them leave, you will have contributed to the development of Indian industry. Please treat this as your CSR, as your corporate social responsibility. Do not make the donation to the next charity. Train 100 more people, even if 50 stay with you and 50 walk out. This is the new CSR, I believe, which will take India forward. Third, management is no longer about getting work done from people. It's about developing people through work. And just as we invest in modern machine tools, we need to invest in modernizing minds through the process of learning and unlearning. The hangover from the industrial age must go. Fourth, God has not stopped making good people. Productivity is about development and training and creating excitement at the workplace, because there is no better retention tool of talent than excitement. Neither wages nor perquisites, nor increments, nor designations can hold back people like excitement can hold back people. Excited employees give you not only 8 hours of work, but also contribute with their ideas for improvement. Fifth, customers want more for less. And this will continue. This is the age of free competition. But customers don't want lower cost, they want higher value. They don't want a product, they want a solution to their problems. Sixth, if you want to win, you have to help your customers win. So listen carefully to what the customer is saying. Going forward, white-collar productivity will have a larger bearing on your cost than perhaps blue-collar. It's time to reinvent a new way to improve white-collar productivity, whether it's in the area of new product development in your companies or the business processes that have got complicated. It's time to uncomplicate these processes. It's time to simplify and ensure that white-collar is able to operate in a highly productive environment. Eighth, normal is gone. Business unusual is the new usual. If you find in your company that everything is under control, it means you're going too slow. Finally, let me end with a very short example. You know that a butterfly comes from a caterpillar. A caterpillar comes in a shell. What you might not know is a caterpillar that struggles in pain and breaks the shell comes out and becomes a butterfly. The caterpillar that does not struggle dies. Life begins at the end of the comfort zone. So there is no free ticket. What needs to be done? We have to do it. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.